Hello, my name is Anthropos, and you are watching You Don't Know. You don't know, huh? So don't act like you do, because then something bad might happen to you. Hello, and welcome to another quiet episode of You Don't Know. You don't know, huh? So don't act like you do, because then something bad might happen to you. Yeah, we're kind of being quiet here. It's after hours in a hotel room in San Antonio, Texas. We're down here doing a paranormal investigation with an experiencer who has a ton of documentary footage and eyewitness testimony. One thing that sets this person apart from most other experiencers is the amount of footage, both still footage and live video footage that this person has. And it's fascinating. We're going to get into that. We're still conducting the investigation right now. Suffice it to say, it does involve, there's an ET aspect to this. There is a, I guess for lack of a better word, a Morgellons-like aspect to this. There is a glowing orb phenomenon aspect to this. Not necessarily like the ones in Ghost Light Road that are so luminescent and bright and everything, but these are orbs that are definitely, you can't miss them. They're on film for sure, but they seem to be more around residences and houses and stuff like that, and in fact they follow this person, and so it's fascinating. You know, Josh Reeves has made a number of discoveries, and he stands alone in the field of the truther movement, I guess you call it. He alleges that most everybody, all of the people who have shows and radio shows, TV shows, YouTube shows that are at a certain level in the game and above, that every one of them is on the take. And it's quite fascinating that he would, make that assertion. He's thrown some names out there, David Icke, of course Alex Jones. He always lambasts Alex Jones, and I think by now most of your average listener has discerned that Alex Jones is a puppet, so-called, for the controllers. Josh has just released, I believe, within the last couple of weeks, Spellcasters 2. Spellcasters 2, I don't have it, I have not downloaded it, I may get it tonight. But Spellcasters 1 was so scary. I didn't know what was going to happen upon the release of Spellcasters 2, and I was actually surprised that it got released. You may remember I have a couple of videos about Josh Reeves. One of them is called The Assassination of Josh Reeves. And the other one is called Update, the Pending Assassination of Josh Reeves. And let me tell you, it's, quite rude to make a YouTube video about somebody talking about their pending assassination. And so when I thought, his life was being threatened and everything, and I came to the conclusion that he was going to be assassinated if he did not, stop what he was doing. That was a year before I actually had the video, and what prompted me to put the video out is because Josh Reeves himself predicted his own assassination. So, I was because of a sense of morals or decorum, I guess you'd say, I was holding back on putting that video out there, but as soon as he announced that he thought he was going to be assassinated, well, by all means, I released some videos and gotten a lot of views on them, some interesting comments. Spellcasters 1 deals a lot with Scientology He doesn't call it the New World Religion, but of course that's what I think it is. I at one time thought Thelema was going to be the New World Religion, and it didn't turn out that that was the case. And what's fascinating about Scientology is you have a group of people called the Free Zoners, and these are people who practice the belief system of Scientology, yet they are in no way connected with the Church of Scientology. These are people like George Nuri, Reverend Farrakhan of the Nation of Islam, believe it or not. The nefarious aspect of this Scientology, or Free Zoners, you know, they're one and the same, except one group does not control the other, is that it's being spread by the alphabet agencies, and it's, you know, being propagated to be the New World Religion. You know, that's the only way I can put it. I didn't hear anybody else say that. That is my assertion, my theory. So anyways, spellcaster, and you know, the idea is that even Trump's involved with this, you know, so it goes pretty deep. And that all the people who speak out against Scientology, like Ramini, the lady who was on the King of Queens hit TV show, Leah Ramini, who's lambasted Scientology and goes after them full tilt. The idea that that's controlled opposition, that she is really on the payroll for Scientology. I mean, as bizarre as that may sound. But you know, this world has a lot of bizarre inversions and stuff like that, and you've got to know how to look for it and what to look for. So like I said, I have not seen Spellcasters 2. I've heard a little bit of talk about it. And I did kind of find it interesting that Josh seems to be, on Spellcasters 2, it seems to mostly be about the Hollywood movie industry and the music industry and all the conspiracies attached with that. Of course, we're all pretty much well versed in that, you know, the occultism or whatever in popular music, and you know, subliminal messaging. You know, you play a Beatles record backwards and it says you gotta smoke marijuana, or no, that was a Queen record. Anyway, so no, all that shit's frighteningly, not frighteningly, it's real, right? I mean, there's we've all been subjected to this shit our whole lives. What is, you know, fascinating to understand is to go as deep as Josh goes and start looking at some of his information. You realize that these systems, this Hollywood movie system and this pop music, rock music system, are far more pervasive and far more insidious than than almost anyone has dared to believe or even ponder. And it's a hard pill for me to swallow, finding out that most of the great rockers that I grew up with and idolized and stuff like that were all basically, you know, CIA plants, or put in there by Stanford or MIT or something like that, or had, like Chris Christopherson, or the guy for the Doors, the singer for the Doors.
Jim Morrison.
Jim Morrison, you're right. Their fathers were high-ranking members in the military. I mean, high-ranking members. Like Jim Morrison's father was like an admiral who was in charge of the entire Pacific Fleet, if you can believe that. You know, for World War II, Mr. You know, against war and all that stuff. Yeah, that's who his dad was. And Chris Christopherson, his dad was on like the Joint Chiefs of Staff or some crazy shit like that. I mean, we're talking high up there. These aren't your regular rank and file, you know, military people. These are the people at the very top. And so it's fascinating, you know, the mamas and the papas. There's this whole, you know, neighborhood in near Hollywood where all of these groups just came out of, you know, the Beach Boys and stuff like that. Well, let me tell you, we now know all that shit was straight mind control. It still is straight fucking mind control. And that's a hard pill to swallow if you're someone who's dedicated their life to music like I have. To turn around and say, oh, you mean all these people that were quote-unquote against the system or whatever, you know, or trying to make the world better or something like that, you mean they were all like deceiving us and everything the entire time? Yes, that's exactly what I mean. Now, some of them grew a conscience. Like John Lennon grew a conscience, you know, he felt bad about it, what he was doing, he wanted to get out of it, he grew a conscience, he started putting out lyrics for real, talking against the system, started exposing the Illuminati, and look what it got him. A bullet in the fucking somewhere. He got shot by this guy, some, guy. I can't recall his name right now, but he's probably on the, the tip of your lips. And David Chapman. David Chapman. This is the guy that shot Lennon. Well, he was put out there as some crazy, deranged guy who thought that Lennon had stole his lyrics or something like that. All the signs of mind control. All of the very signs of mind control. Well, imagine this little coincidence. David Chapman's parents were colleagues and good friends of the Bushes, as in George Bush Sr. George Bush, Barbara Bush, you remember them? Ex-CIA director who became the President of the United States, and then put his son, he cheated Al Gore out of the election and put his own son, George W. Bush, in the presidency of the United States. Yeah, that guy. Interesting fellow, that guy. His father funded the Nazis with American tax dollar money. This is not, this is not some earth-shattering, realization, or this is known. These are known facts. And we also know now that Barbara Bush, who recently died, is the illegitimate daughter, or was the illegitimate daughter of Aleister Crowley. Aleister Crowley, the most wicked man, the most wicked man who ever lived, one of his monikers. Aleister Crowley, who's was basically created the religion of Thelema, and also did not create, but he really helped bolster and build up a secret society, one of the most secret societies in the world. Not that their existence is a secret, but that the rites and rituals and such are a. So the assassin that killed John Lennon, Mark David Chapman. Mark David Chapman, on the day that he killed John Lennon, on the very day that he killed John Lennon, earlier that day, he was at George Bush's house. George Bush Sr. I'm not making this shit up. Okay? Think of the implications. George Bush had already been director of the CIA, think of MK Ultra, mind control, Mark Chapman's parents were friends with the Bushes. Apparently they were over there too. I mean, what are the chances that the guy who was in charge of all the brainwashing in America, that Mark David Chapman was at his house the day that he killed John Lennon, and that George Bush had nothing to do with the assassination of John Lennon? That would be quite a stretch, wouldn't it? You see, my friends, we live in a world that is far stranger than you may have believed. Jim Morrison was off of drugs. He did not throw up on his own vomit in a French hotel room or whatever, and the two men went in there and drowned him in his bathroom, in his bathtub. And they scared his old lady into saying that he was doing dope and stuff like that. Same thing with Jimi Hendrix. Jimi Hendrix was clean when he died. Same thing with Prince. They're trying to smear Prince's reputation, say he got back on drugs and stuff. That's not true. Prince was clean, according to all sources. They killed his ass. Assassination. So, there goes all your dreams and hopes of, becoming a rock star, or at least mine, Who wants to wind up like that, right? I mean, if you let Josh Reeves tell it, there probably never has been a natural death of a rock star. Look at some of the recent deaths we had recently. I already mentioned Prince. Then, of course, Tom Petty died. Tom Petty has been afraid for his life for over 2 years now. They've already tried to kill Tom Petty once, and they tried to burn him alive in his house, and it didn't work. He got away, and he told confidants and everything that he was worried that people were trying to kill him, And now he's dead. Chris Cornel, the singer of Soundgarden, is dead. Chester Bennington, the singer for Linkin Park, is dead. Chester Bennington and Chris Cornel were working together on a project. They found out that the elite or whatever, some group of people, I don't know, were involved in pedophilia. And that's just incensed them, and they were outraged by it, and so they decided to use their resources and their connections and everything like that to expose these bad people. And they may have not taken into consideration how much power these bad people had, because those young men are dead. Chester Bennington and Chris Cornel were working on a project together to expose pedophilia, and they both died within about a week of each other. They both committed suicide.
That's messed up.
That's what they always say, right? Maybe Chris Cornel by the auto asphyxiation or something like this. Now let's hear here's the truth. Chris Cornell's manager at the time, who he was married to, his wife, she used to manage another quasi-famous rock star. I can't think of his name exactly right now, and he wound up dead, and she wound up with all his money. Now Chris Cornell has wound up dead, and she wound up with all his money. And the record company gets a lot more money because they get to sell all these records and, DVD packages or whatever, download packages commemorating Chris Cornell, the genius. Man, okay, Chris Cornell's wife was having an affair with Chris Cornell's bodyguard. Guess who found Chris Cornell dead? You got it, the bodyguard. Who had the most to gain? I guess the bodyguard had the second most to gain, because he rides off into the sunset with Chris Cornell's wife. I mean, come on. It doesn't take a genius to figure this shit out. And whereas with Lennon, the motive really was to silence, somebody for their progressive, views and speech, and they're liberating, all you need is love type talk, and that's why they wanted to get him. But since then, it's mostly just been for gain and for profit. But there's always, with these groups, there's always, they want to usually have more than one reason. And well, what better reason could you need than Chris Cornell and Chester Bennington are teaming up to expose some bad thing, expose them, and so they had them off. I mean, it's pretty obvious what happened. Anthony Bourdain was doing the same thing. He called out a guy that he didn't like. He called him out in his biography. This guy was a convicted pedophile. Anthony Bourdain called him out, told everybody what it was, and was in the process of writing another book with supposedly even more explosive information. Well, Anthony Bourdain died. Okay, you get the picture? This guy, I can't remember, I'll think of his name here in a minute, but him and his brother are actors. His brother was in that movie, Quaid. There's Randy Quaid and Dennis Quaid. Okay, have you seen the thing with Randy Quaid? Him and his wife ran away from Hollywood because the star whackers were after him. It's just absolutely real. Do not think for a second that this shit is not absolutely 100% real. What about Kesha? Kesha, the girl who's the pop princess, who's supposedly, has some really racy stuff and satanic stuff, supposedly. They just put her in a bunch of imagery because all these things are rituals. They're rituals that are being, played out in the form of music videos and also concerts and stuff like this. Well, Kesha had a domineering manager. She complained at one time that he gave her the date rape drug, and she woke up, in bed with him naked. Not telling what they had done or whatever. Basically he raped her with these date rape drugs. And I think she has since separated herself from that manager. But I mean, you trying to tell me these people don't have handlers? What about Kanye? He had that big explosive deal, pissed off a bunch of his, audience members in front of thousands and thousands of people saying good things about Trump. And I'm not sure that thing wasn't a whole setup, but still, they put him in a mental ward because they didn't like what he was saying. I mean, they got control of your life. On somebody say so, they got power of attorney. They can have you straight put in a mental ward. And let me tell you, when Kanye West came, he still doesn't look the same, does he? It's kind of just a shadow of his former self. you know, if it's even the same guy. If it's even the same guy. And that's where things get even freakier and stuff like that, is where they change these celebrities around and stuff. And that is by design, and that is A, because they do it, and B, because they want to make you think they're doing it. It's another diversion. But absolutely, the guy who we knew grew up, or not, I didn't grow up with, but you know, maybe your parents grew up with, as Paul McCartney. That guy, ever since 1967, it's been a different guy. That's all been documented. It's all been proven with video forensics. The guy who became Paul McCartney, who today is Paul McCartney, his name is something else. He won a Paul McCartney lookalike contest. He worked for the band, the Beatles, when Paul McCartney had that wreck. The Paul McCartney, the real Paul, the new Paul McCartney, the guy they call Paul McCartney now, has never ever been on stage with John Lennon and the others. The Beatles never performed live after some particular date in 1967. I wonder why. The Beatles didn't want to have anything to do with this guy. He was a pretender. Now the truth is, he was actually more talented than Paul McCartney. Of course, they're not, you know, they're going to get somebody in there that's talented. But yeah, absolutely, absolutely. The whole thing is a big.
Sham.
It's a big
Sham.
psychological operation. So anyway, Josh Reeves, you know, a lot of these, you know, Josh Reeves says that, you know, people take his research and never give him credit. I'm giving him a lot of credit right here. I'm basically paraphrasing for you a lot of the discoveries that I've learned from Josh Reeves. I don't mind giving credit where credit's due. I didn't do the research. I didn't discover these things. I'm kind of compiling them and giving them to you in a narrative, a straightforward narrative, and letting you know that yes, I have looked into these matters, reading up different articles and stuff like that. It's absolutely true. Absolutely true. Because Chris Cornel died of auto asphyxiation. You know, this idea that these rock stars will put a belt around their neck and hang it from a closet door, and then to deprive their head of oxygen, and then start jacking off. That's what's called auto erection or auto something or the other. You know, supposedly the guy for NXS died that way. That's not how the guy from Michael Hutchins. They say he died from auto. That's not what happened. Two big guys went in there and hung his ass from a fucking closet door, hung him until he was dead, and then they had the media come in and say he was jacking off while he was trying to get off in some kinky way. His dad went around